The offseason is here, and the Blue Jackets have to figure out how to go from hard to play against to hard to beat. They were unable to pull off that trick against the Pittsburgh Penguins, beaten in 5 games. We talked a couple days ago to the players and the coaches. Today, myself, Aaron Portzline, I almost called you Aaron Portzline, columnist Michael Arace had a chance to meet with Jarmo Kekalainen and John Davidson. And I think we all want to know, okay, this team has made the playoffs again for the 3rd time. But how do they get to that next level, especially in this division? As John Davidson pointed out today, 4 teams made it, 3 teams are into the 2nd round. The only team that did not make it were these Blue Jackets. Where does the next step come?
That's the Metro, yeah.
Yes, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about what you're writing tomorrow, your takeaways from this news conference today?
Well, these are always, I don't know, Pollyanna is probably too strong, but they're very optimistic takes. 2 years ago, after they went 15-1-1 down the stretch, that was the year, right? 15-1-1. Our headline was "Message of Hope" right in the newspaper, and last year it was "Major Disappointment." So I think the headline this year is back to "Message of Hope."
Maybe it's "Major Message of Hope."
Maybe, but I'm open to suggestions. So, but anyway, they were very hopeful, and my takeaway from this. Among many, there were a lot of really good specific questions. If you can watch the video, you're a fan, you'll get a lot out of it. But my takeaway was that they seem very comfortable to stay pat. And that's not the worst thing in the world, because alternatives have to be considered as well. So they think they have a great defense, and I think they're correct there. We've written enough about it. It's very deep. The goaltending, they addressed again and said, they think Bob is going to clear a mental hurdle, and that's the plan, for Bob to clear a mental hurdle. Whether they bolster him with a backup who can press him remains to be seen. But Bob's their guy, which is not shocking. They pay him $7.5 million a year. Actually, it's capped at 7.4. I think he makes 8.5 next year. So that's nothing crazy there. And as far as the forward goes, obviously it was a big contrast in this first round series. You had the very high-end finishing talent of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Jackets couldn't match that. It should be said that very few teams could match that, maybe none. So, you take that with a grain of salt, but they want to see improvement come from within. The growth from within was part of their message today, and was specifically dealing with the forward lines.
Let me ask you this. Going from what he told us, which was absolutely very accurate, to
thanks, Tom.
Excellent reporter. Your thoughts of now,
an excellent driver.
Are they going to do that, or with all that surplus on the back end and the history? I guess I'm leading you here, but sure. Jarmo has not been afraid to make moves in the big moves in the past.
We even spoke about this today.
Is this a summer where we might see them try to make a move to get one of those type of offensive playmakers that I think they need? I think that they need to, if they're going to compete in this division.
I think they agree with that. I think they agree that they need that. The question for them is with these guys coming up, is Bjorkstrand that sniper? I mean, he showed signs of it at times this year. Pierre-Luc Dubois is probably going to come in to the lineup this year, or at least have a really good shot at it on the wing, perhaps. And the growth from within. Josh Anderson's only going to get better. Wenberg took a huge stride. We've said this before, that the hardest thing, or rather, it's not that hard to get out of being awful to get to being good, right? That's just pick a process and go with it. The hardest thing is to get the next tier.
Yes.
So anybody can frame a house. And I just realized I have a good joke. Oh. You need a good Finnish carpenter to finish the deal. Finish?
Yeah. That's nice.
Now, to your point, you like that? That might be in your column tomorrow. They have all these prospects. They have a lot of depth, good depth, not just body depth, not just guys that can play in the minors,
especially on the back end.
Absolutely. And John Davidson said clearer maybe than he's ever said before. That is what, when you first take over a team, you build up all that pool of picks and talent and all this sort of stuff, and you use that to make deals. It's so much easier. Because rarely do you make the 1-for-1, the Jones for Johansson. Those just don't work. But you call, what the hell is Colorado going to do? I mean, nobody knows what they're doing with those guys. Is there, if you're Columbus and you just trade one guy that's the equal of one of those guys off your roster, it doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah.
You move a couple of pieces to Colorado, and maybe you can bring one of those guys here. And that's just an example. There's no
Colorado.
nothing. Right.
Interesting choice.
So I think this is where they're at. I think they do want to do some stuff. I think they do want to bring some snipers in, but I don't. They're not going to go crazy, break the bank, and see if they can't do it in 1 year. Because still, the most improvement that this team is going to see is going to be from within. One of the youngest teams in the league.
What are your thoughts about what you heard about them talking about Bob today? Because you guys have both been writing a lot about Sergei Bobrovsky. Davidson, JD, and Jarmo addressed him. What did you hear when they were talking about Bob? We also got Jarmo a little bit off to the side later.
They're worried, but they believe that he can, as they put it, overcome they pointed at the mental hurdle. And Jarmo was effusive talking about players in this sport and others where that mental toughness for playoff rounds, that switch isn't really installed by the finishing carpenter for a few years, or the electrician, I should say, but for a few years. So, and they think that they express 100% confidence.
Yes.
Were their words that Bobrovsky will be able to have that switch installed.
And I believe them. They have to do that.
Yes,
but I believe them.
Yeah.
And further to that is this. Everyone knows how hard Bob works physically to be ready to play in games. There are things. I mean, he wouldn't say if Bob has a psychologist or not. I assume he's going to have one this summer if he doesn't. But you can work on this as much as you can work on the rest of it. And Bob is not afraid of work.
The disappointment is rife right now in Columbus for good reason. Tom, let me ask you, if I said to you before last season, Sergei Bobrovsky is going to win 41 games and be healthy for an entire season, you take it.
Oh, absolutely.
And you say, and then he's going to flame out again against the Penguins in the playoffs.
You still would have taken it.
Yeah,
you still absolutely take it, but then now it does give you pause going forward, and we've talked about this before. You don't know anything. He could have another great regular season next year.
You won't know anything until next year.
We won't know anything until the playoffs, and that's where. But if you start adding players that can help you get those extra goals, because for so long, and let's be honest, until Game 3 of the series, he was playing on a very slim margin. They were only scoring, remember, 1 or 2 goals.
Right. That is the playoffs.
And speaking of
one
bit of housekeeping, real quick, before we lose track of this, Marcus Nudavara was going to have hip surgery this week. It explains kind of why he missed some games in the middle of January. I believe it was 6 to 8 in a row, where we didn't know what the injury was. He will be back, they're saying, late August, September. So, and Jarmo Kekalainen was saying today he thinks he has the ability, if healthy, of course, to be potentially a top 4 defenseman.
Yep. And another name on that back end to keep in mind that people may not be familiar with is a player named Vladislav Gavrikov.
Very good point.
That's a draft awesome pick. Name, man.
Yeah,
it is. Vladislav.
That's an awesome name.
A draft pick from a couple years ago who's been playing in the KHL, who they have been saying behind the scenes for months now is ready.
And he's going to play in the World Championships, right?
Probably playing the Worlds for Russia. One gets the sense there's an offer on the table for Gavrikov that he has not signed yet. Maybe he will after the Worlds.
He's a big fella.
And he's ready to play. That's their feeling. Yeah. So, I mean, you hear all of this stuff. Murray's going to be healthy. Nudavara will be healthy after the surgery. Kyle Quincy's not long for this team, right?
No, that was my takeaway today.
Let's all do the math here.
Yeah.
And I think it's similar with Sam Gagner up front, where you've got players coming in and this sort of stuff. It goes to July 1st. Those players test the market. Those players get offers, they take offers.
Yeah.
If for whatever reason, I can't imagine it would be this case for Gagner, especially if he doesn't get an offer, maybe he comes back to Columbus and says, I really like it here. Yeah. I'll take less. Let's sign and play here. But I don't think either of those.
I don't think so either. But they're both in that boat where if they do sign, they'd be August signings, and you know those guys. You know,
right? That's what he was.
Exactly. They're both in that boat.
Yeah.
They'll test it.
Okay, let's go back to our original premise about how do you go from hard to play against to hard to beat. But in sticking with their whole idea of inside, building from within inside. One guy that you wrote about a lot during the playoffs or mentioned several times, and we've talked about throughout the season, is Brandon Saad. And I thought you had a good question today and a very good response from both Jarmo and from JD about what they expect of him and his level of inconsistency through the course of the season.
Yeah, the question said that what I posed was they've invested a lot in Brandon Saad. He's a $6 million cap hit. And here's a guy that, if not for an injury to Dubinsky during a regular season game, he would have been scratched. And more egregious than that, he was benched for the third period,
14 minutes
of a playoff game.
Was it game 3?
I believe it was game
2.
1. It was game 1. He was benched in game 1 and then came back and scored a goal.
And that was where
game 2.
They were trying to come back. They were down, and they're sitting the guy they're paying to score goals. Right. So it was. It's not a stretch to say that was a public humiliation.
But to almost in defense of Tortorella, they have said this is a guy they love. They love his talent. Yeah. They brought out some analytics, not even analytics, but numbers at 5-on-5 scoring around Christmas time. This guy led the NHL in 5-on-5 scoring.
Well, they brought some other numbers out too. Each player is ranked 0 to 10, probably 5 to 10. On a game-by-game basis where the performance is. And I'm paraphrasing here, but they told Saad, no one has a bigger gap between their greatest game and their average game.
Yeah.
And the game that was mentioned a few times was Chicago, that game in Chicago near the end
late
of the year.
Season.
Where you just go, whoa, that's Brandon Saad, that's what they were expecting. And then there are games where you go, geez, I don't know if it's working here or not.
Did you notice Saad?
Why is he on the third line, or is that the fourth line?
Right.
Why is he here? Why is he there? That's so interesting stuff.
Really interesting.
And what they wanted, the message they wanted to get across was not unlike the Bob message. Yeah. It was similar anyway, and that was that they're expecting him to take his game to reduce that gap. Yeah. They say he understands, and that it's on him to reduce that gap, and they have confidence that they will.
And if now let me pose this to you guys. If he can get to that level consistently, doesn't that not take one less? It's almost like trading for a player.
Well, there's your sniper.
There's your sniper, right? You get a guy that can maybe hit 35. Right. 35. You have him and Atkins.
Bjorkstrand's a 30-goal scorer in the NHL.
Yeah.
You know, to me, number one center. And look, Wenberg is another one here where he took a great step forward.
No question.
He did, but he's going to have to. To me, he's a 1B, 2A right now.
Sure, I think that's fair.
And again, the goal here is to get through what is a wicked Metro division
in the playoffs.
And you have to beat Pittsburgh because they're not going anywhere.
Right? No.
And one of the things you have to do, and it would help matchups a lot, is if you had a legit number one.
Yeah.
Because you look at who Pittsburgh has down the middle, and we didn't get there in this because Wenberg everyone concedes, had such a terrific growing season. Mm-hmm. But he has another level to get to solve this offensive problem as well.
Yeah. All right. A lot of interesting stuff. It's been a lot of fun this year with you two guys doing the videos. A lot of fun. We'll see you guys.
I don't like this lighting.
This is nice lighting.
No, I don't like it.
Oh, you don't like the lighting?
I'm gonna hit the button. Is that all right?
We'll see you sometime around the draft in June for Aaron Portzline, for Michael Arace, Tom Reed. We'll see you in the off season.